Sega produced some of the greatest and most influential arcade games ever, with the majority of them finding their way onto home consoles and handheld gaming systems over the years to allow fans to play their favourites all in one place. During the later stages of 8 and 16-bit consoles, Sega would produce compilations of the best-selling and most popular games onto a single cartridge to give players more variety. Plus, it reduced the wait times for swapping over carts, as everything would all be accessible in one place through a single menu-based system. This trend would continue long after Sega left the console market, as they have such a profound catalogue of interesting, unique and popular titles that they can revisit them whenever they choose to. Sega would begin publishing games and compilations of their popular classics on more modern systems during the 6th console generation with the PS2, Xbox and Nintendo GameCube, even as far as adding games on the Gameboy handheld systems to provide elements of nostalgic gaming on the go. One of the compilations we'll be looking at here is the Sega Arcade Gallery collection that got a sole release on the Game Boy Advance system in 2003 that came packaged with 4 distinctive games from Sega's classic arcade lineup, with Afterburner, Space Harrier, Hang On and Outrun, to give fans a mix of action and racing experiences. Sega would publish this compilation in Europe but would hand over the publishing rights to THQ in North America, and has been slightly retweaked to work within the limitations of the Game Boy's hardware. We will look into these versions and see how they compare to many other iterations that have been witnessed on other systems over the years. One of the most fast-paced and frantic action experiences in Sega's arcade lineup, Afterburner on the Game Boy Advance, is a port of the 1987 original, with subtle tweaks to make it run effectively on the system due to lower screen resolutions. Afterburner is the most technically advanced entry in this collection, but has suffered from some cutbacks, with fewer sprites being displayed on screen at the same time to prevent slowdown, but this also makes some visual elements look more patchy in places compared to other versions of the game. There is also a reduction in the finer details of explosions and other scenery elements to allow the game to run more smoothly, but overall a solid experience that plays at a fast pace and will require skill and flexibility to overcome the many obstacles and challenges that you will face. I never got to play this in the arcade, but managed to play versions on both the Sega Master System and Afterburner 2 on the Mega Drive, which were very addictive and a lot of fun in my earlier years. In recent times, I managed to also purchase Afterburner Climax on the PS3 when it appeared briefly on the PlayStation Store a few years back, and it too is a great experience that pays homage to the original games. The Game Boy Advance version of Afterburner is a great alternative for fans and is a great way to play the game on the go, so it is well worth revisiting. Playing Space Harrier brings me back to the days of my youth when I owned the Master System version and would spend hours desperately trying to complete the brutal levels in the game, and due to its insane difficulty would take many years for me to finally finish, only to discover that during my secondary school days to find out that there were cheat codes available that could be used to continue the game from the point of death after losing all of your lives. If I had known this sooner, my experience of the game would have been less frustrating to say the least, but better late than never, I suppose. Still, it is a cool game, and it's well worth seeing its way to this arcade collection on the Game Boy Advance. It is also the most accurate of all of the game conversions on this list with regards to arcade quality, but the only issue being with the lower resolution used to make it run properly on the console. You will be presented with many battles and boss fights that will keep you alert, as you must be aware of your surroundings at all times. Like Afterburner, the gameplay of Space Harrier is frantic and fast paced, that will require a lot of trial and error to overcome the many challenges you will face. It will be interesting to see if there are any cheats available for continues in this version, also as it will make your life much easier when playing, but that is something that will be worth investigating even further. In Hang On, you will race across 4 different regions that alter the overall difficulty of the experience, as you play all within strict time limits as you race to hit each checkpoint to increase the timer to prolong the playthrough for as long as you can. If you are familiar with the arcade original and the many variants released on home consoles, you will know how challenging the game is, and it is no different in this version. If anything, it is as difficult as any of the other versions currently out there. The visuals do hold up, especially on the handheld system, but the controls can be tricky at times, in some cases feeling a little less responsive or reactive, leading you to crash more often than usual. But with a little more time and patience, you can overcome these hurdles to get a good run at finishing the stages. There is some slowdown, however, that can occur if the screen becomes overpopulated with rendered sprites, which only reflects the limitations of the hardware. Still, this version of Hang On is a solid experience despite its limitations, and is definitely worth a try. Outrun, like the other games in this list, has some limitations with some visual elements that have to be scaled back, which can make some scenery sprites look more blocky and pixelated compared to other games. But these changes allow for the game to run at a smooth pace on the handheld console. It is Outrun after all, so no matter which version of the game you play, you will have a great experience, as it is an icon in the arcade scene. You must race to hit checkpoints that will bring you through different locations, depending on your choices during each interval, so there is more than enough replay value to explore your way through the game while trying to achieve the highest possible scores. I previously covered the legacy of this iconic game in a previous video that looks at the many versions, sequels and spin-offs that document the influence this game has made on the racing genre in video games. Put it simply, you have to play this game. While this collection brings back the nostalgia of excellent classics to handheld systems, it displays an interesting way to play these older games on more updated platforms of the time. The collection did receive high ratings on Metacritic, but many stated that more games could have been added to the lineup, as Sega has a lot more games under its belt that could be exploited a lot more. But still, the games presented in this collection are solid experiences. While not showing anything new, fans of old will find them interesting even in short bursts. You will also have access to listen to the iconic, near arcade perfect soundtracks, which will only add to the nostalgia. However, this is only one of the many classic compilation collections that have been released on systems over the years by Sega, many of them providing access to even more classic games of the past, which we can look at in this next video that shows more interesting ways on the extension of Sega's interesting history.